how to be a specialist at operating on people by playing the game Operation.
Wow, that is a bold statement out there. This is Vin's hand playing Operation.
For those of you that aren't watching this on video, Shane was just shaking his hand like Michael J. Fox would stand.
Oh,
so
geez. Ouch. Sorry, Jay.
We love you, Michael J. We really do. Back to the Future was a staple of my childhood.
Through it.
Yeah, but how do you know these things are even real? They don't even say my real name on them.
They don't?
All right, and welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin.
And Shane.
And today we have some controversial topics to talk about. Or, I mean, maybe not controversial to us, but controversial to some people. Shane, tell the people what we're talking about today.
Well, I mean, the college degrees matter, you know, and gosh, it really is controversial because, like, beforehand when we were just briefly talking about it, because you obviously want to say all the juicy stuff for you guys, like, I just now thought of, Vin, what about trade schools? You know, what about culinary? What about mechanics? What about
those aren't
IT?
colleges? The trade schools, they're different.
It's still a degree, though. I mean, so you're keeping those different then.
They are
right?
different.
Well, what about an MD? Like, is an MD, like, you know, for medical, is that considered a trade school? It's a lot of work. But then you're also practicing.
Yeah, but so it's not considered a trade. It's considered a higher form of education. It's higher still.
Is it not considered a trade? I mean,
it is not.
Operating, you know, dentists, like, they're not trades?
No.
I think to a form they are. Are they considered trades in the general society? No, but I think they are.
No,
they're the creme de la creme of trades.
You can learn how to be a specialist at operating on people by playing the game Operation.
Oh, wow, that is a bold statement out there.
Just don't buzz the sides.
Yeah, you're a buzzer, huh? You go around the corners. This is Vin's hand playing Operation.
For those of you that aren't watching this on video, Shane was just shaking his hand like Michael J. Fox would stand.
Oh, geez. Ouch. Sorry, Jay.
We love you, Michael J. We really do. Back to the Future was a staple of my childhood. But, you know, anyway. So let's talk about these useless things called diplomas. Why don't we? Having a bunch of them hanging behind me right now, I think that they are relatively useless. Mostly because of the fact that, one, I went through the time to get them. Two, I don't feel like I learned a damn thing in school. Three, the biggest thing I did learn in school was how to pass the test and write the papers, which don't actually matter in real practical applications. Four, I got all of my knowledge and experience that has set me aside to become a leader in my field within the last 2 years after I left my industry and decided to pursue my own self-education, which is actually the things that taught me higher value skills, helped me with my coaching and therapy, and led me to actually provide more value than I ever could have as a student of social work. And I would say the last thing is why they're so useless is because of the fact that you come out in a ton of debt, which makes no sense either, because you're supposed to help and enrich society, and yet you can't even get out of survival state, which is something, you know, in the psychology field is how you're living in fear or you're living in the state of scarcity, which puts you in a very negative place. So I don't even know how you're supposed to do good work. Oh, and then let's not forget this. They've actually done comparative studies of people that were in college courses that were taking and doing the materials, and then they gave accelerated just study programs to random people to learn the topic. And the people that were in these 6-year programs and the people that took the accelerated courses scored almost identically on tests. So if we could take any random person off the street, give them an enhanced version of a course that they would spend 6 years learning, and they could perform the exact same, why do we need school?
Well, I think, that should be a topic today, too. Should college be free? I think the big things here, especially for businesses and, why I look for degrees as well, including for my sales reps and my director candidates, this is the only reason why I like them. It's a sign of accomplishment. You completed something. That little piece of paper that you have hanging on the wall shows that you started it and you finished it. That's it, right? And I would definitely agree with you for somebody who has a degree. My wife has her master's degree as well. 99% of everything that we learn is from real life experiences. That 1% from business school or from becoming a teacher, as my wife can contest to as well, maybe you learn something or how to start something, but it's mainly from real life experiences and just doing your regular day to day. But the only thing that I look for as a person who hires people all the time is that sign of accomplishment, right? Because that just tells me that you've completed it. You start to finish. You're not going to half-ass something. Now, I'm not saying that I won't look at somebody that doesn't have a college degree, because I obviously want to find the best fit for the job based on what it actually is, right? If it's a sales rep, degrees don't really matter to me. If you're a director role, it's really references and background and what you've done. But if you're job hopping every year and you don't have a degree, I'm kind of seeing the proof in the pudding here. So
yeah, that's a personality issue though. Like that person that you're describing, because I mean, my point of contention in that is I don't think that's a bad idea, right? The biggest thing, and this is what I've even gotten when I've reached out to people who are like, oh, I'll never even answer a coach, but I answered your message. And I'm like, why? And they're like, well, because I see you have a credential behind your name, or I see that you're a licensed therapist, or whatever the case is. And I understand there's a perception in there of like, you've done the thing, exactly what you're saying.
right.
I also look at it though, as somebody could equally commit themselves to something else. Like my coaching certification under Tony Robbins, though it wasn't as long as a school year, you have to do a minimum, it's 200 hours of training. And that's for like level 1. There's more levels. So I think it's also about that though. Can you just look and see if it's not a college degree, is somebody equally dedicated to something else in their life? Like what if they had no college degree, but they were like, hey, I have this coaching certification and I've taken trainings every single year on how to be a coach and how to be a better coach, like through whatever X, Y, and Z. And I have all these different certs of like, different formats of coaching. What if that was the case?
Well, I think that's where it just comes to personal preference. I feel the best analogy that you could probably do is a medical, an MD. Would you feel that if I just came into the room and saying, hey, I'm fresh off the press, but I've read every book and I know what to do. And just because I don't have, let's say this certain certification, I've read about it, I know how to do it. Or would you feel that you'd feel more comfortable with somebody who's been in the field for 20 years and doing it?
I mean, obviously the person in the field, but the reason is not because of the fact that I think of their book knowledge. I think it's because of their experience, which is what we're saying is, or at least that's what I think we're saying, right? That's the leading thing that you should be looking for, right?
So this person could be from India, Mexico, Asia, not in having the actual degree, let's say in the United States, but they have the experience. You would hire that person versus somebody who has the degree, right?
Oh yeah.
You'd feel more comfortable going with this person.
Oh, I 100% would. If somebody who worked in a hospital for 20 years that wasn't a doctor wanted to give me advice over a fresh doctor, I'd probably take their advice.
So, and that's the other thing. Do you go off of gut?
I like gut. I think gut is the best way of making a decision.
I mean, so what if it's somebody from a third world country that's, been a doctor for 10, 15 years, but you don't know how their medical practice is, or compared to, and we're talking about, let's say, surgery, right? Well, let's go worst case scenarios here. Would you trust somebody that's been doing it from a third world country or somebody that's been doing it for 3 years, right? Has the degree, been around the block, 3 years, has all this in the States, somebody who's been around for 15 years, been doing the same thing, but in a third world country, might not have the same standards, same material, same whatever it may be. You're just going off of gut.
See, well, that one has a little bit of a logical argument behind it, because like if you're trying to give me someone from like Africa who hasn't seen an updated EKG machine in the 20 years that they've been a doctor, and then they're coming here to America and they're trying to use new technology, I would rather work with somebody who's not even done with their medical degree. Because
it's all circumstantial based on every single thing that you talk about. It's circumstantial and gut feeling.
Sort of. Because like that, yes, I agree. That is circumstantial, but that's because of the fact that technology is involved. When we're talking experience, we're talking experience. Their experience is different because they're not using the same tech. That's like somebody who's been driving a little beater like a Toyota Camry their entire life, then gets in a Ferrari for the first time. I'm not going to trust them to drive a Ferrari because they've been driving their whole life. It's a different type of experience. So if you're focused on that specific thing, like if you're telling me I am a master of psychology, I've studied it for 30 years, gone through all these trainings, but I never went and I never got my psych degree, I wouldn't give a crap. I think you'd probably be a better you'd be a better therapist than most therapists that are out there practicing with licenses.
So this is all from people who are honest Abes, right? Who, are saying to you, because that's what we're talking about, gut feelings and confidence, that, I've done this for 30 years and, I don't have a certification, or, you know what? Hey, I've been driving Ferraris all the time. Do I own one? No, but I've driven Ferraris. I know how to drive one. So you're going off of gut feelings. That's the other thing on the flip side of why those degrees behind you say that you are who you are, and this is why. I have proof that I have done this and gone through it.
Yeah, but how do you know these things are even real? They don't even say my real name on them.
They don't?
No, because did I ever... I think I told my story. Did the listeners...
He printed degrees, guys. He printed degrees on them.
They're printed on the back of Chinese takeout menus, actually. Yeah. But no, well, because here's the thing, right? Like when I was tired of being a loser and I changed my name from Vincent to Vincenzo, and I wrote Vincenzo on all my college transcripts. So technically, all of these degrees say Vincenzo on them. That's not actually my name, though.
Well, you told me that your best friend in college was Vincenzo. So wait, this is not really ringing. I'm just kidding.
It was me, myself, and I, all three of my personalities.
So, but really getting back to it, though, that's another pro for those degrees, right? Is I have proof that I went here. Obviously, you could fact check. You can look up the school, the year, by looking at the credentials. It's proof that you have accomplished something compared to somebody who will have no shot. Right, let's talk about the therapist that, hey, I've gone through Tony Robbins, I've gone through, all of these high-end people, but I don't have any certifications and I've done this and that. You're going to go through that person versus somebody who has their master's degree in 100%. Coaching or in therapy or whatever it may be.
I would personally, because I've been around enough therapists to know a lot of them do not pour into themselves after their formal education.
See, but I've been around enough good salesmen that can sell themselves and are amazing in interviews. Amazing in interviews, and then you hire them and they're crap. They're crap. So I don't think gut feeling is all the ways the way to go. Talk from a guy who's hired over 400 people in the last 2 years. I'm telling you, people are amazing at interviews. I don't know how they've gotten this good. Or they could fool somebody. They should be poker players is what they should be. But people are liars. They're cynical. They're egotistical. And really it depends on what you're looking for.
That's what you got.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I honestly think degrees, like I'm switching back during this podcast, I think they're a sign of completion, which I think is what you want. You started something, you finished something, compared to not having a degree at all.
See,
right?
I would still disagree because you're using it as a validator for why you should hire someone. You know what I always had to do at every job interview?
Not necessarily. If it's a deciding point if I'm talking to 5 people and they're all great candidates, but I see that 2 people have a degree, that's a sign of accomplishment. Those 2 should probably get pushed up, right?
And see, this is what I'm going to say. So I don't think that matters. I don't, because if you do this, which I'm about to tell everybody, then you don't really, it doesn't matter what the person's degrees are, because then you'll actually start to understand if they're the right person for the job. To get every job I ever had in my field of psychology, every time I would interview, they would give me a case study. And so in the interview, they would pull out something that happened to them. Right. And mind you, I'm usually interviewing with the CEO of the clinic or the direct manager of the clinic. So there's somebody who's been in there for 20 something years. They've seen all sorts of crazy cases. And what they always do is they pull their hardest case, like their personal case that maybe they could or couldn't solve at the time. And they put it in front of you and they say, okay, so it's been a great interview. Let's talk about this case. What case? Well, I had this client. They were struggling with X, Y, and Z. How would you treat them? What would you do for this? What's your course of action in this going to be? And so all of a sudden, now I have to sit there and think on my feet of how I would help this client and what I would do. And that's your best bet to get hired. So if you start bringing that into every type of hiring process you have, you're not going to have to sit there and be like, well, so what? Like, this person has a 6-year degree and 5 certifications and they suck at their job. Meanwhile, this person has no degree and maybe half of a certification complete, but they're a whiz at it because they actually give a shit about it. You're going to know in that instant because now you've actually tested it in real time.
So you're putting the whole entire job off of one situation, right?
I'm making that a main deciding factor.
So I agree that situational interviewing is great for every single interview. Like, you should be able to do that, right? If it's sales, do objection handling. If it's leadership, put them through situations on, hiring and firing and going off of that. But you can't just make that it. Like, you have to. Situational is great. I mean, that was a textbook's response, or, yours is very circumstantial because you're a therapist. So I feel that you actually get to put some sort of human inflection towards how you do it because you are a therapist and a coach. But I don't know if that would apply to anything else.
Why not? That should apply to everything else. Everything has a way that it's supposed to be done. And if there's not a supposed to be, there's a way or a script to some degree it's supposed to follow. Like, you have a leader, you have an executive, a C-suite. The C-suite is supposed to perform in a specific way, especially if it's dealing with people, dealing with responsibilities, etc. So you tell them, hey, guess what? We're sitting here at the company. It's a day in the life. And then all of a sudden X happens. How would you handle this situation? As the CEO, as the leader, whatever, what would you do? One of your employees comes to you, one of your subordinates comes and says X, Y, and Z. How do you communicate? How do you navigate that problem? How do you work through this disagreement with them? I would put people through so many scenarios that I would be confident that they could actually handle their job. And with the caveat too, I'd be looking to see if they're coachable. Because to me, if you're coachable and you have a decent head on your shoulders and you're invested in the work, that's all you truly need. I don't think a degree really matters.
I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think it should be enhanced more than just situationals. But I definitely agree. I mean, I use situations all the time in my interviewing as well. So, I mean, I guess the next topic is, now that degrees essentially don't matter outside of a sense of accomplishment that you completed something from start to finish, should colleges be free? Any college that you want to go. And if they are free, does that make them even more useless, or does it still a sign of accomplishment that you took the time to complete something?
I think it's interesting.
And before you say that, public schools are free. Like, for obviously everybody knows this, but public schools from K to 12 are free. We're not talking about charters. We're not talking about private schools, right? Nothing like that. Public school from K to 12 is free. The moment you pay is when you go to college. Junior college, regular college, universities, trade schools, you pay an absorbent amount of money. As Vin was saying, then you go to debt. So, is college, is it a scam, which we kind of agreed that it is to a degree, right?
Yeah.
So should it be free?
So I think when things are free, they're not free. And number two is that
you just said that public schools are free.
But they're not free. They're paid for by our taxes.
Well, that's okay. So that's what I'm saying, though. They are free, right? The taxpayers pay for it, just like as well as everything else. Let's not talk about politics and how corrupt it is, because the majority of the tax dollars go to their freaking pockets. But so let's make it K through 16, right? For a regular 4-year degree, K through 16 is paid through by the public taxpayers. All right. Let's just use that scenario. Should that be the case?
I listen, this is about to be super controversial. I don't think there should be, at least at this time in our lives, I don't think there should be public or free anything, because the problem is that we as citizens do not have a good enough handle on it. So everything that's free is crap right now because of the fact that it's just pushed on you and you don't actually have a say, even though they're like, oh, you have a say.
What do you mean? Are you just saying college in general, or even like kids? Because now we're talking about, 60% of the society here. Now they have to pay for private school, which a lot of parents and people are working 2 jobs, or they're dual income families, or they're working 3 jobs, and they're relying on that to put food on the table. So now you're saying K through 12 should all be private and charters?
Well, listen, I don't actually have a solution for it right this moment. I'll tell you that.
Then for president 2028.
I'll tell you. Listen, the biggest thing for me is I'm never sending my kid to public school. I would rather have my kid homeschooled than send my child to a public school, and that's what's 100% happening. Either that or a really good private school. Period.
We're looking at private schools. We're also looking at religious schools as well. Where my wife and I are Christians, and we're looking at Christian schools. But that's what we believe in, and we want to incorporate God into my son's life. And private schools, they have a better curriculum. And honestly, I personally agree with private schooling if you can't afford it. But I feel like that's why. Like, if you can afford private school, those types of kids are going to be a little bit better than public school, which I've been to public school my entire life. I was in public school. Me too,
except for high school. Then I was in private school. So, but let's get back to the main thing. Right. I think that because of the fact that college is such bullcrap and it's so not needed at this point, if we stopped looking at, we're only hiring people that have this degree, this certificate, I think it would force these colleges to stop charging so much damn money. So I don't think college should be free, but I think it should be more of a fair price. Like, let me put it this way, right?
You're saying that for everything too, right? Including like trades, like learning, like what about IT specialists? Like literally learning how to become an IT specialist in coding and doing advanced computer work.
Let me ask you something. Is there literally anything at this moment in time in the world, is there literally anything you cannot learn if you truly immerse yourself in it on the internet?
Probably not.
Correct. In fact, AI is even getting so advanced. I don't think this is full public yet, but they're practicing doing surgery with AI right now. Yeah. So people are actually doing surgery without having to do surgery. Of course, it'll be different, right? Like once you touch a real body and there's actual blood and crap, it will be different. But the level of training you could receive at this point in time, right here, right now, on any topic you want at any point, even by buying courses, AI, virtual reality, doesn't matter. You can literally learn anything. And I am a firm believer in that. If you're willing to sit there and put in the time, you could probably even exceed what people are doing in school, because schools also push other bullcrap. Like, why did I have to learn geology in college? Why did I have to pay for geology to become a psychotherapist?
I think it's literally just the motivation of going to somewhere and like, I'm going to school to learn this, to become this. Like, it's that extra push. But it's also, oh, I'm going to have this nice piece of paper hanging on the wall, so now I'll be able to get the jobs. That's what really the big thing is. So anyways, back to college being free.
Right. But that's also why I'm saying if we just put people through practicals, we could actually get a better read. Like, you want to say, hey, you're going to become a surgeon without ever going to college? Cool. Let me see your practical abilities to do surgery on dummies through augmented reality.
But no one's going to hire that.
I would probably listen. I would allow that.
Yeah, see that once again very situational. Like, I'd rather have a Harvard grad who, is fresh off the press, who I know is at least can make quick decisions compared to someone who watched 4 years of YouTube videos on how to do heart surgery. Yeah. Once again, situational again, but great that you had done 4 years of YouTube surgery on a dog and cat and an owl. You know what I mean?
Shane, you're going to find me dead one day because I needed to get like a minor surgery and I let some guy from YouTube do it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like, dude, I've been practicing with, owls and frogs and...
No, man, it's augmented reality. He's doing virtual surgery.
Yeah. And I've been like, Vin, really? He couldn't have gone to the hospital?
No, screw the hospital. It's a scam too, the amount they charge. The healthcare system is just as scammy as the education system. But
yeah, amen to that.
Back to that education system. So I think that the price of education, if people are going to pursue it, it should be comparable. For instance, like when I was in social work and I was going for it, I went to city colleges. So the tuition was extremely cheap. But of course, the reputation is also just as crap. It's like, oh, it's a city college. Like, it's not really worth anything, blah, blah, blah. I had the opportunity. I wanted to go. I got accepted into every master's program. Really nice colleges. Like, I got to some of the more notable ones, like NYU. I got into Adelphi and Fordham. I was in the process of applying to Columbia. I was probably going to get in there too. Like, my dad was an alumni, and I pretty much had the process all down pat. And then I got into some regular, like just a city college, like Hunter, which is also a decent college for my degree, but it's not like anything really notable. What was the main difference at the time? Well, Hunter was going to charge, I think per semester was like 4,000 or 5,000. I can't remember. This was over 10 years ago. It was like 4,000 5,000 a semester. Fordham, which I really wanted to go to, was a really beautiful college. I was going to dorm there. I was going to, like, you have to get a meal plan when you're dorming, all this good stuff. It was going to be like 20,000 a semester. So social work, for those people that don't know, is one of the top 10 lowest paying fields in the US. The average salary of a social worker is about 50,000 to 60,000 a year. Now, I don't know if that number's been updated, but that's what it was almost 10 years ago. So 50 to 60,000 a year. If I had decided to go to Fordham, I would have been 20, 40, 60, $80,000 in debt. And then obviously with interest accruing, all that other stuff, would have taken me even longer, because you're saying I'm going to make 50,000 or 60,000 a year. I'm going to have actual expenses, not just paying off college loans. How long am I paying off that college loan for a profession that can't, like, 1 year, if I paid nothing but to that college loan, I literally wouldn't be able to pay it off even in a year if I had no other expenses. So that's one of the major problems with schools today. And of course, we're saying, well, you could do what I did. You could go to a city college, right? And that's fine too. That's why I chose to go to a college that only cost me 1/3 of what I would make. The issue is a lot of people don't think like that. I think that's a problem. But number two is that colleges just charge outrageous prices. I think that's another issue. So to some degree, I can't blame the colleges, because if somebody's willing to pay that, listen, I'll always take more money. If I'm like, hey, this is my coaching price, and somebody's like, I'll pay you triple, I'm not going to be like, that's dumb. I'd be like, yeah, pay me triple.
Right.
So colleges kind of see that. It's a business. They're like, hey, it's going to cost you $80,000 a semester to go here, and you're going to be in debt to us for the next 40 years. Are you okay with that? It's like, I mean, yeah, this is a beautiful college, and I got a dorm. I need the experience. So I think part of it is people are dumb. They make dumb decisions because of whatever, the experience, maybe they have to dorm or whatever they want to do. But I think the other part of it is also that colleges take advantage of people, because some people also don't know what they're doing. And we shouldn't be taking advantage of youth and people that are trying to figure out their lives, because people that are youthful and trying to figure out their lives tend to make dumb decisions that impact them forever. And it's really sad that one of the systems that's supposed to promote, right, higher education, you're supposed to be promoting people making better decisions and living a better quality life. And yet what you're actually doing is taking advantage, I think.
You're 100% right. And I think that's been the story is, for the last 100 years that people have been saying is, do your work, do your homework, do your best in tests, do great in your SAT scores, your CAT 9, whatever it is now. And you can get into a good college. And like, that's what we've been told as kids, that these are the steps you have to take to get a good job, to get a good house, get a nice car, to get a good family. Like, those are the steps to take, but it's not, right? And I think you're absolutely right that they like brainwash the parents to the kids. Like, it's a generational brainwash almost, that you have to do these things to make a good living. And it's just not true. I want my kid to make his own decision and her own decision on what they want to do with their life. I think going to college is an experience. If it's not free at that time, it is an experience to be in that type of scenario in the dorm. I think it would have been a different, experience for you, which it could have changed your life, could have changed your path. Who knows? But there's a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and his poor dad got his college's degrees, got his master's, and worked his way up through promotion. And his mindset was, great, once I get this new promotion, I can afford this bigger house, I can afford this bigger car, and I can afford this bigger debt. which in reality you're not growing anything, right? You're just, you have more liabilities is really what it comes down to. And his rich dad, who did not have a college degree, who worked his way through the ranks and owned multiple properties and investments, and who ended up teaching Robert Kiyosaki, his methods, which please read this book. It's phenomenal, phenomenal book. It just teaches you a different alternative way of life. And, Robert Kiyosaki agrees, and I agree with, actually, I should say it that way. I agree with him about college. It's not necessary to get to where you want to be, right? And it really is unfortunate that they brainwash these, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds to prep them to go to these colleges where either the parents accrue this debt or the kids accrue this debt that ruins them for the next 20, 30, 40 years, if not their whole life. That they'll just be paying this off, that they're not going to be either utilizing, as we've also talked about, who people have degrees all the time that don't utilize, or that it just doesn't really apply outside of just accomplishing something.
And there's one other thing to add to that. When you look at these true Ivy League colleges, a lot of people that get in there is not because of the fact that they have phenomenal grades. Like, if we're being real, wealth stays around wealth. The best way to get into one of these phenomenal Ivy League colleges that people die to go to is to donate $200,000 before your child applies for admission.
Sure.
So that's another part of the scam.
I'm assuming that's some of it, but I would like to think, when I don't know, I haven't done my research, that 95% of it are people that have done good grades and, actually do the actual hard work. And hopefully the parents actually put some discipline on their kids outside of just throwing money at, a problem and fixing it. But I would say that 5% of the time, I would agree with you.
But see, the fact that could even happen means that it's all crap. Because what is it, right? When somebody could bend a rule, that's how you know it's not truly something that is a standard. Because a standard and structure, it's there to maintain a status.
Right.
If you can pay your way into something, pay your way out of something, it's not a standard, it's not a structure. What it really is, it's a situational thing.
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
It's a rule. Rules are meant to be broken.
Yeah, no. It means it's situational, and it depends who it's for. It depends what person is stepping up to that situation. So if I wanted to get my daughter into Harvard, all I really need to do right now is make sure I have $500,000 right before she goes for admission, and I buy them a new wing. And if I do that, I can guarantee. Let's listen to this podcast in 20 years from now. If I want my daughter to go to Harvard and I have $500,000, let's test it. Let's see if I have a daughter who goes to Harvard in about 20 years from now. But considering I don't really care about school, I wouldn't do that unless she really wanted to. And I was obviously very wealthy. So we'll have to see. Let's check back on this. Whatever episode this is, we'll come back in 20 or so years. We'll see where my daughter goes to college. And you could ask me how much I had to pay for her to get there.
Well, if your daughter's going to Harvard, it would probably be in 16 years, not 20. But hopefully, right? 18, 17? It's usually around there, right after high school.
What if she goes undergrad somewhere else, master's Harvard?
Oh, gotcha. Maybe she goes abroad for a year or two. Okay, fine. 20 or so
around. She's got to get some experience in the less qualified colleges, Right. It's because it's really the masters. Nobody cares where I got my undergrad. Everybody cares where I got my master's and my license. So 100%. That's really the big thing. So yeah, let's check it out. Shane, any closing words on our topic today?
For the parents out there that have young kids like us, or even teenagers, and you've been taught this, your whole life, as far as high school, college equals, this, and this. It's not true. And Vin and I, well, I can't say for Vin, I'm living proof of that. For an entrepreneur who only has a bachelor's degree, which was mainly in culinary school, which is a trade, rose through the ranks and, got the things that I wanted to help my family get to where we wanted to be. And you don't need a college education for that. Real life experiences and learning from your failures is what's going to get you to where you want to be. So don't brainwash your kids. Let them make their own decisions. However, guide them. And if you don't have kids and you're listening to this to yourself, hopefully that helps. Wake up. Do it, as Nike would say.
Yeah, and before we get sued now for copyright infringement,
I put Nike in there.
but to Shane's point, if you have kids that want to go to college, have a few $100,000 in the bank so they could go anywhere they want to go,
And let
and
us know if it's before 20 years from now.
that's it. If you know, like, don't save to pay their debt. Save to pay their admission. Think about that real quick, and you get them anywhere you want to go. But seriously, for anyone who has a child, myself, Shane, obviously, we come from these places. Though we don't have older kids right now, I am the product of a parent, or parents, I should say, who've worked very hard to help me get through life. I don't take that for granted. I was able to go debt free because my parents helped me with, of course, I chose the cheaper option, which made it easier on my family, right? But they had helped me with that, and I'm always grateful for that. I do recognize my life would have been harder without that. So one thing I could say is they never pushed me to go to college. They said I should, but my brother didn't want to go to college. My brother went to a trade school, and they were also open to letting him explore that, giving him the opportunity to experience what he wanted to, because my brother loved cars and he wanted to go and be a mechanic, which he didn't do, by the way. Just so if anybody's wondering, my brother's not a mechanic. But at the end of the day, the best thing you could do as a parent, if you have kids, is just support them in whatever their endeavors are, but also challenge their ideology. Like, hey, son or daughter, you're saying you want to go to college. Like, why? What do you want to get out of college? Like, what do you think you need to go to college for? Explore with them, but don't try and guide them on their path. Just be there to support them, help them if you can, whether it's monetarily or just being there as a parent who could listen and hear their problems, or, you know, support whatever their thoughts are. But don't push your dream on somebody else's, and don't go with the narrative that if they don't have college, they're never going to go anywhere. Because I mean, there's some people out there right now that went to trade schools and maybe own a mechanic shop or a foreman at a quarry or some crap, and they're making more than your college freaking graduated self, or your son or daughter. So you could have a very viable life, but what really matters is doing whatever you love. That's the most important. So always encourage that for your children. If you're somebody right now who's trying to figure it out, encourage that for yourself. Figure out what you love and how you could generate some income off of it. And, you know, stay active. Figure it out.
Amen. Yeah, couldn't say it better.
All right, everybody. Well, we are wrapping today's episode of the 1% Podcast. I want to let you know, if you guys really love this episode, please leave a review, share it, like it, give us 5 stars. We want to be trending. We want that rank in SEO, and we want more people to see and hear our ridiculous rants. So if you could help us out with that, we deeply appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.